I have these digital temperature sensors and a Raspberry Pi, and today I'm going to be testing Tempurpedic, EightSleep, BedJet, and a bunch of other mattresses and mattress technologies, and I'm going to be talking about how hot they sleep and how effective they are at dissipating heat. I'm going to take as data-driven and evidence-based of an approach as I can to testing this and see if I can shed some light on what works and what doesn't work. So I'm going to take a few minutes and explain this experiment that I came up with. If you're not into the sciencey, nerdy stuff, then feel free to skip ahead. Here's a bunch of timestamps to the products that I will be testing. I've also left chapters down below if your device supports that. But without further ado, let's get into it. So when I first started this project, I just decided that I was going to put some temperature sensors on the bed and then try sleeping on it and seeing what the data looks like. As I'm rolling around, I'm switching from sensor to sensor, and the data that came from that just wasn't really useful enough, especially if I'm going to try to compare product to product. It turns out that the human body is pretty variable when it comes to temperature based on how stressed I am, what I ate that day, whether or not I exercised, and how hard. And so I wanted to see if I could come up with a better way to compare these products that takes the human body out of the equation. So what I came up with is, drum roll please, this big plastic drum. I got this from a local winery. I guess they get their fruit delivered to them in this. But I can fill this up with water. It holds about 15 gallons of water, which is about 130 pounds. I figured this is about the size of a small person or like the torso of a larger person. And the idea is I can try to heat this water up at the same rate that a human heats up, which I looked up, I guess it's about 100 watts. And so to simulate body heat, I found this little cartridge heater. This will put about 100 watts of heat into the water. I've also got this little aquarium pump that's going to help circulate the water inside of here. I've got one of my digital temperature sensors and just an aquarium temperature sensor so I can monitor the temperature throughout the test. And the idea is that I can take this drum and I can just put it on any one of these products, let it run for a few hours and see what the data looks like. Now, of course, when you get into bed, your body is about 100 degrees already. And so I can preheat this bucket using a sous vide cooker. This is the best way I found to do this, since the 100-watt heater would have taken like 13 hours or something to heat it up. So now I can heat up this drum in about 45 minutes, get it up to about body temperature, and then I can start my test. Now, it's not my goal to make this thing emulate humans perfectly. This plastic is going to transfer heat a little bit different than skin will. This drum won't sweat like a person will. Instead, it's my goal to just provide data so that you can compare a product that you're probably familiar with already to some of the other products in this. And so I filled up the drum, and then I took my heater and my other equipment and I put it inside the drum, and I've got it attached to a piece of threaded rod so I can try to keep this equipment somewhat centered inside of the drum. I don't want it to be close to the edge because I don't want to melt anything. And again, this heater is putting out a constant and a consistent 100 watts that's going to be the same across all of these experiments. It's not my goal to keep the drum at body temperature. It's to just have a consistent test across all of these products so we can see how the product handles the heat. Does the temperature inside the drum go up or does it go down, and how quickly? That's how we can compare between all of these products to see how they manage heat. So with the drum prepared, I set up my first product, which is a 3-inch Tempurpedic memory foam topper. I think these toppers are super popular. People buy these things because they're cheaper than a new mattress, trying to make their old mattress a little bit more comfortable. So I've got a sensor inside the drum, under the drum, and another one measuring room temperature. And let's look at the results. So we can see in this chart that the drum temperature is going up by about half a degree per hour, which doesn't really mean anything to us at this point. And I know some of you are uncomfortable seeing this line climb above body temperature, but your body is always making heat. And if you're hot, you're going to sweat. That sweat will evaporate and take some heat away. And if you're cold, your body will shiver. and your muscles will then create a little bit of additional heat. And again, I'm not trying to emulate the human body perfectly. Instead, I'm trying to test the mattress's ability to dissipate heat. This topper doesn't claim to cool at all. It's just a normal memory foam topper that a lot of you probably have. But a product that does claim to cool is Tempurpedic's memory foam topper with cooling. Now this type of foam has something called cooling gel inside of it, which feels cold when you touch it. I think the theory is that the mattress would take the heat from your body, move it to a different part of the mattress, which can then dissipate it into the room. But today is the day we can finally put the theory to the test and see what happens. So if we look at the chart, we can see that the temperature is going up by about half a degree an hour. It's a little bit better than the non-cooling foam, but for the most part, it's within a margin of error. I don't really see any benefit to getting the cooling topper. However, this didn't really sit well with me because this is a cooling topper on top of a mattress that I haven't talked about yet. And maybe it's this mattress that's doing the cooling and the topper is not really having any effect. And so I went to a friend's house. He has a king size Tempurpedic cooling mattress. This thing was like $5,000 or more, and I thought this would be a great test to see just how effective cooling foam can be. If we look at the results of his mattress, we can see that the temperature is going up by about 1.2 degrees an hour. So again, this is just data. We don't really know what it means yet, but so far what we can say is that whatever is under these foam toppers is potentially better than Tempurpedic's cooling gel. So let's talk about that. When I went mattress shopping a few years ago, I asked the salesman if they had any mattresses that didn't have any foam in them. And the only mattress in the store that didn't have foam is Purple's mattress. So Purple just has like this gel grid on top of the mattress. And then there are a few different variations. Some do have foam as a base layer, but they make a version that has coil springs underneath the grid. And yes, there is some foam around the perimeter of the bed and a tiny bit between the gel and the springs, but it's very minimal. So in my opinion, this should be one of the least insulating mattresses out there since there is no foam. But if we look at the data, we can see that the temperature inside the drum goes up by about 1/3 of a degree an hour, which so far is the best that we've tested. They do also make pillows, if that's something you're interested in. These pillows weigh like 10 pounds or something crazy, but if you want to keep your head cool, that is something that is somewhat unique to the products in this video. This is one of the only ones that will keep your head cool, so something worth considering. Another friend of mine let me test his mattress, and he just has a generic spring mattress with some kind of thermal qualities in it. Unfortunately, he didn't have air conditioning, so it's not an ideal test. It's not quite fair to that company. However, if we look at the chart, the temperature inside the drum increased by about 1.2 degrees an hour, which is about the same as Tempurpedic's Breeze mattress with cooling. My other friend with the Tempurpedic bed, his room was like 72 degrees and somehow did the same as a non-cooling spring mattress with an 80-degree room. And again, if you remember in the beginning of this video, I'm just trying to present evidence here, and the data that I'm collecting seems to indicate that foam is an insulator, and I think everybody kind of knew that, but it's pretty interesting to see that in data. Moving on from mattresses, EightSleep has been flooding me with ads ever since I've started this project, because anytime I search for cooling mattress or cool mattress, they just seem to be at the top of the list. Now this is the first water-cooled technology that we're going to talk about. There's a couple others that I'll get into, but this one is app-controlled. You can see it's got 4 lines, so there's one for this side, one for this side, so you can sleep with a partner and have individual control. Now these guys have done a lot of research into what they think is the best sleep. There are sensors in the top of the bed that can detect how you're breathing, what your pulse is, whether or not you're rolling over or not. and can adjust the temperature based on that somehow. Now the defaults in the app start at a lower temperature, so when you get into bed for the first time, the temperature is really low, but then as the night progresses, it raises the temperature. EightSleep has 2 different times that it can do that in the night, once around midnight, another around like 4 a.m., but you can adjust all of these things and you can adjust what temperature it goes to. Unfortunately, EightSleep is just ridiculous with their pricing, because not only is this thing like $2,500, but if you want to be able to change the temperature in the middle of the night, you have to pay $200 a year for a subscription service, and these are the cheapest options. They get even more expensive from there depending on what features you want. Furthermore, anything that holds water that you sleep on and you're constantly flexing, it's inevitable that it's eventually going to fail and start to leak. And this is expected. This is just part of wear and tear. But EightSleep wants $500 for a new pad. So I figured I'd just put together a quick spreadsheet. We would put together the costs over, let's say, 15 years. And I just assumed that you'd have to replace this pad once every 5 years or so. I think that's pretty generous. If you look at other reviews or on Reddit, some people have had issues even within their first year or two while it's under warranty. But if you go out 15 years, you're gonna end up spending over $6,000 to have this system installed, because all of those subscription fees really add up. But of course, you're not here just for that. You came here for the data. Now, I've got this EightSleep on the purple mattress, and in the app, I set this to about 74 degrees and kept it there. It absolutely can get colder, it can get warmer. I tried to set it somewhere that I thought was reasonable, because with all of these water-cooled things, it doesn't really make sense to compare its maximum ability, because all of these things have the ability to make you shiver at night, and that's not comfortable. Really, what we're just trying to do is show that it does have the ability to cool down that drum. So if we look at the chart for EightSleep, the temperature actually increases by just a tiny bit, like 1/10 of a degree an hour. Now, I could absolutely turn this down. I could make it get colder if I wanted to. The app claims it can get as cold as 55 or as hot as 110, but I tested it and let it sit for a bit, and the coldest I could get it was about 62 and the hottest about 95. But again, this is more than adequate. But I think it's interesting that inside of this cover, there is a layer of foam. I think this is intentional to help it make it more comfortable, and it does. It's actually a very comfortable thing to sleep on. I found that I was able to adjust it to my liking and actually sleep pretty cool. But again, if you don't pay that $200 a year for the subscription, then it doesn't adjust the temperature in the night, and I would find that I would wake up around midnight and I would be cold. And yes, I absolutely can go into the app, turn the temperature up manually, and then fall back asleep, but that's kind of the opposite of what you're going for when you buy something to sleep better. You don't want to wake up and have to make an adjustment. Regarding the other things that the subscription offers, they have a bunch of sensors in the top that track how you sleep, and that's part of the subscription model. But there are other products that offer sleep tracking that don't have a subscription, like the Beauty Rest sleep tracker that I have installed under my mattress. You can install this under any mattress. It can detect your heart rate, it can detect your breathing rate, and it can even detect what mode of sleep you're in just based on how you roll over and everything else. So that's all without a subscription. So again, the $200 a year subscription kind of kills this for me. I don't think this is something I would recommend based pretty much just on that alone. Now, if you're interested in a smart cooling system that doesn't have a subscription, then you're going to want to check out Chilisleep. Chilisleep is significantly cheaper than EightSleep. Over that 15-year period, you're going to spend about $3,000 less because this does not come with a subscription. These guys got into the industry like 7 years before EightSleep started, and I think it's interesting that the connector on this actually looks a lot like the one on EightSleep. So it seems like EightSleep might have just used this as a prototype for their product Now, one of the big differences between Chilisleep and EightSleep is that Chilisleep actually has two units. They're separate for each side, whereas EightSleep packs everything into one unit. And that means that unlike EightSleep, if your partner doesn't want cooling, then you don't have to force it on them and you can save some money. These will both fit under your bed, whereas EightSleep is meant to sit vertical and it can't go under your bed. Another big difference is that the pad that comes with Chilisleep, it doesn't zip under the bed like the EightSleep does. I feel like it does bunch up a little bit more. And in addition, this pad does not have any foam in it at all. It's just this mesh material. And in my opinion, this mesh was a little bit too cold. If we look at the data, we can see that the temperature under the drum got down to like 84 degrees compared to the 92 that we had under the drum with the EightSleep. So the perception of cold is much, much higher with this Chilisleep, and it's also much more effective at transferring heat away from your body. I had both Chilisleep and EightSleep set to 74 degrees in the app, and we can see that the Chilisleep was actually able to reduce the temperature inside the drum by about 1/4 of a degree per hour, which is quite a bit more than the EightSleep was. Now, you can absolutely turn both of these systems up or down to make it remove as much heat as you want, but I thought that that was worth mentioning. If you do end up getting a Chilisleep, you might consider getting a thin topper, whether it's a pillow topper or maybe a 1-inch foam topper on top of this, just to try to make it a little bit more comfortable. Now, the big deal breaker with EightSleep for me was that they charge money in order to automatically change the temperature in the night. Well, Chilisleep makes it not only free, but they allow you to add as many changes as you want. I went into the app and I was able to add 10 or more changes. So like every half hour, I can have it adjust the temperature if I wanted to. I don't think that's something that I need to do, but it's a nice feature that they give you for free. There's no reason not to offer that. Now, you may have bought into this idea that you need AI and automatic temperature adjustments based on how you roll around or your heartbeat, and there might be some science to that. I don't know how to test that really, but the nice thing is that Chilisleep offers their sleep tracking as a separate product just for those who want it. If you don't want sleep tracking with EightSleep, you're out of luck. You have to pay for it anyway. With Chilisleep, it's a separate product that costs less than EightSleep's does. Even if you pay Chilisleep's subscription for their sleep tracking, which will integrate with the cooling to adjust your temperature in the night, it's still going to save you like $1,500 over that 15-year period. In addition, Chilisleep even offers an API. So if you are a developer and you want to be able to get into the nitty-gritty of your sleep and write your own script to watch how you're sleeping, maybe upload that to a server, have it react in a different way. You can adjust temperature the way that you think makes sense. I think this opens up a lot of possibilities for health tracking or integration into a smart home. Like you could have your bed frame automatically raise your head to wake you up in the morning based on the optimal sleep stage that you're in. Like the sky's the limit. I think that's pretty neat. Now, if you're not interested in spending thousands of dollars to try to sleep a little bit cooler, then you might be interested to learn about Mattress Cooler USA. So this is called the Cold Flash. This is their flagship cooler, and there's no app. In fact, this doesn't even have heat. This uses a different technology than EightSleep and Chilisleep because this just uses an air conditioning compressor. The same compressor that you use in dehumidifiers and air conditioners, same as in your car. Now the downside to this is that not only does it not heat, but it is actually quite a bit louder than EightSleep and Chilisleep. Take a listen. I believe that both EightSleep and Chilisleep use something called a Peltier module. Now, a Peltier module is a thermoelectric device that when you apply a current through it, it gets hot on one side and cold on the other silently. So this gives both of those devices the ability to heat and cool, and the only thing that you hear is the pump and a fan that cools down the hot side of that puck. Now, the upside to this system is that you can get this cooler with not one, but two styles of toppers for under $200, which is an order of magnitude less than the other systems that we've talked about so far. The other thing that separates this brand from the others is that they're much more pessimistic or realistic about how long these pads are going to last and suggest that you replace them every 4 to 6 months. The other brands expect them to last a lot longer, maybe on the order of years, but when you have to replace them, they're $500 to $800 to replace. But these pads, Mattress Cooler USA makes them available for as little as $10 a piece. So again, back to the spreadsheet, if we go out 15 years, the total cost of this system is like $500, which is thousands of dollars cheaper than EightSleep and Chilisleep. Now, before we look at the data, I wanted to talk about the differences between these two pads. So this cloth pad is actually just a bunch of hose that's zigzagged back and forth inside of the cloth, and it's sandwiched between cloth and a little bit of padding. Whereas this pad, it's just PVC. It's just holds a little bit of water. There's a lot more surface area for it to hit your skin, so I expect this to be a little bit more effective. And if we look at the data, yes, this PVC is able to reduce the temperature inside the drum by over 1 degree an hour, which exceeds all of the other cooling systems that we've tested thus far. This thing has the ability to make you hypothermic before the end of the night. So again, if you're going to use a system like this that doesn't have any foam on top of it, you're probably going to be uncomfortable. And so I would suggest some kind of cover on top of this, whether it's a pillow topper or 1-inch foam or something like that. This cloth cover, however, when we test this, we see that the temperature inside the drum continues to go up about the same rate as it would on just a bare purple mattress. So this cover doesn't seem capable of actually cooling you down. However, there is a slight difference in the temperature under the drum. So if we look at the data, we can see that the temperature under the drum is about 2 degrees cooler than it would be on top of the purple mattress without the pad. So it will feel a little bit colder. It might feel a little bit better than being on a bare mattress, but in terms of actual cooling ability, it seems like the cloth inside of this counter any cooling ability that it had. I think this is because it has a lot less surface area. These hoses aren't that thick, and so there's not that much that rests up against your body or in our test against the drum. And so it's just not as effective as this PVC pad is at cooling. Mattress Cooler USA also offers a different style of cooler that I'm not going to test because this is kind of a terrible idea. There are a bunch of other brands on Amazon that are similar. You can get these with the pad as cheap as maybe $150 or a little bit less. But the problem with these is that to cool the water, what they're doing is blowing room air through the water. There's a little bit of evaporation. That evaporation takes a little bit of heat with it, and it has a cooling effect. However, if you're blowing room air through the water that you're pumping through your pad, all the stuff that's in the air, like dust and mold spores, all of that stuff is going to end up in the pad and in the pump in here, and it's going to get gross. Like if you've ever looked inside of an air filter after it's been running for a few weeks or a few months, it's pretty nasty in there, and you don't want any of that stuff building up inside of here or in your pad. I would steer away from these. I'm not even going to bother testing it because even if it was amazing, it's just not something that is durable or, in my opinion, sanitary to sleep on. The other downside to both of these systems is that they don't adjust in the middle of the night. According to EightSleep and Chilisleep, you want the bed temperature to rise up slowly throughout the night because as your body is asleep for longer and longer, your body temperature drops and you don't want it to be as cold. You're going to get cold. So you want the bed temperature to rise up throughout the night. But it occurred to me that If the desire is to have the temperature of the water increase throughout the night, why are we trying to cool it? Wouldn't it warm up on its own from our body heat if we didn't cool it? And this is what led me to our final water-cooled product, which is a plastic bucket. So this plastic bucket holds about 5 gallons of water, and inside I have an aquarium pump. This aquarium pump is just going to pump whatever water is in this bucket throughout our $10 PVC cover from Mattress Cooler USA. If we look at the data for this, we can see that the temperature of the drum drops down pretty sharply at the first part of the night, but as the bucket temperature warms up, the heat lost from the drum slows down a little bit. And this is exactly what we want. We want the temperature inside of this bucket to go up. And if we look at the data for what happens to this bucket after you get up and you're not asleep, we can see that the bucket cools back down to room temperature during the day without needing to put any energy into it at all. It just cools down so it's ready to go for the next night. And no, there isn't an app to adjust this, but if you fill up this bucket half full, you're gonna have half the water to heat up. So if you want it to heat up quicker, take some water out. If you want it to heat up more slowly, add some water. If you want it to start colder, you can put some ice cubes in here or something. There's a lot of different ways to adjust this and customize this to make it exactly what you want. And you can get this for under 50 bucks total, in and out. And so if you're interested in any of these water-cooled technologies, I would totally suggest starting with this to see if this is something that you enjoy sleeping on, because it's so inexpensive, it's kind of a no-brainer. And last but not least, we have a product that everyone is familiar with. Everyone has used a fan. We've had fans for decades. I also have a fancy fan called BedJet. BedJet is basically just a fan that blows directly under the comforter or any covers that you have on your bed. Now, in all of these tests, I haven't used a comforter or any bedding at all. I didn't want to introduce any extra variability that might impact the tests because some bedding sleeps hotter than others. And so I don't have a comforter. So both of these are just going to be blowing on the drum, and it's just going to blow heat from the surface of that drum into the room and help cool them that way. Both BedJet and the fan have remotes, so you can adjust this without getting out of bed. The BedJet also supports an app, so you can have the app change the speed. And the newer version even lets you change the speed while you're sleeping, similar to EightSleep and Chilisleep. Another difference between this and the new version is that the new version comes with a much fancier remote, and it's also a little bit smaller so it can fit under the bed. But at the end of the day, both of them are essentially just fans. Neither actually have any cooling ability at all. Both of them are just blowing room temperature air at you, which takes heat away from your body. And so I just have my BedJet set to about 75%. Again, there's no temperature to set. And let's look at the results. So we can see in this chart that BedJet was able to cool the drum down by about 1 degree an hour, which is among one of the better options here in terms of drum cooling. Now, unfortunately, in real-world testing, I just could not get that comfortable with this because it's blowing cold air directly at my feet. When you install this, you usually install it at the foot of your bed. It wouldn't make sense at the head of your bed because your pillows are in the way. And from the side of your bed, that's usually where people get in and out of bed. So the only place that you can put this is at the foot of the bed, and blowing directly on your feet is not very comfortable because your feet are usually the coolest part of your body to begin with. However, and this is a big however, this thing is going to end up being one of my most recommended products in this video, just not for cooling. You see, BedJet also has the ability to heat the air. This is essentially a space heater with an adjustable fan. Now, I started putting this video together in the winter. It took quite a few months to collect all of this equipment, put everything together, and I had a chance to try BedJet in the winter, and it was amazing. Like, everybody's felt hot, fresh laundry directly out of a dryer and how good it feels to just kind of hug that. That's what BedJet feels for as long as you want, because you can set the temperature that comes out of this thing as high as 104 degrees, and it's just pumping that at you under the covers, and it's incredible. I mentioned before that your feet are often the coolest part of your body, and those are the first things to get hit by this hot blast of air. I've used heated blankets and heated mattress pads before, you know, like the electric ones, and those take maybe 5 or 10 minutes to heat up, and then the heat is only from one side, whereas BedJet heats up the bed, I'm not exaggerating here, in about 10 seconds. So 10 seconds after you turn this on, you can get in and you're immediately surrounded by warmth and cozy, and it's just unbelievable. So it's a little bit outside of the topic of this video because it's not cooling, but if you live in a cooler climate and you need to have some kind of supplement heat in the winter, I cannot recommend this product enough. This thing is so comfortable in the winter. In the summer, One place that this exceeds, however, is in sweat management. All of the other products that we've used just try to manage your temperature, but if you're so hot that you're sweating, you're going to be a little bit clammy, and that's not comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you're not going to sleep well. This dries up any sweat that you have on you almost instantly because it's just blowing this constant dry air over your body, and any sweat that you have evaporates pretty quick, and you end up feeling pretty comfortable for that reason. Now, I want to be super transparent with how I'm making money on this video. None of these brands chose to be in this video. They didn't have any say in what I had to say about it or how well they performed. They are all products that I picked on my own free will. I did want to call out that some of these brands have rebranded or come out with new versions. So the Chilisleep is now known as the ChiliPad Dock Pro. EightSleep now has a Pod 4 out instead of the Pod 3 that I tested. Purple's Hybrid Premier is now a Restore Hybrid. The bucket is now a pail. And depending on when you watch this video, it's probably likely that they'll have changed yet again, but the underlying approach to all of these products remains the same. I did reach out to a bunch of these brands to see if I could get some promo codes and some affiliate links to try to save you some money, and I get a small kickback from those if you use those links at no cost to you. If we compare all of these products, there was a huge range in cost. EightSleep really tipped the scales at over $6,000, and it doesn't even include a mattress. And you can get the cooling toppers for as little as like 250 bucks. If you chose a different brand, you can probably get cheaper than that. And if we look at the cooling abilities, we can see that some of the products kind of underperformed. They didn't really live up to their marketing claims. But others were able to sleep so cold that you would be uncomfortable. For these extremes, again, I would suggest having like a pillow topper or a very thin layer of foam. But these are all things you can get for pretty cheap to adjust how you sleep. As always, I would love your feedback on how I did with this video. I'd love to know, do you want more detail? Like, would you like to see how I set up this Raspberry Pi to record the data? Did I give too much detail and you wanted just a quicker video? Any recommendations, things you liked or didn't like about the video, I would totally appreciate it. Just leave a comment below. I know that this channel doesn't really have a theme. It's not very consistent in terms of the type of content that I put out, but I just like to put together things that I'm interested in, and I hope that you're interested too. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I hope you stay cool, and I hope you found this helpful.